back to the Revamp Podcast today. Super excited. Jake Ostrich with me, Delco investor, and been around the game for a while. We're going to talk about some of how you got into the real estate investing space. And
Sure.
I know you want to dig into mindset a little bit. I know you're big on it. I've been seeing your posts recently on social media and everything. And I respect and appreciate that, man. Because it's like, it's real awkward the first couple times that you like either post a live video or something. And it's like just getting out there and doing it and everything. But as soon as you do, you start to see like the impact that it's making on other people. And appreciate that, man.
You're welcome, man. Thank you. Thank you.
So
am
man.
I close enough here? Am I good?
Yeah, but within like, 12 to 18 inches, you can pull it in a little bit. Yeah, man. So take us back to the start. Like, how did you get involved in real estate investing in the first place?
Well, so I started, my journey started way back in 1997. I was living with my fiance, which now is my wife, Stephanie, and in an apartment in King of Prussia, and there was an infomercial on the television that just kept playing. It felt like it played every half an hour. And it was a guy, you might know him, remember him, Carlton Sheets. And, he's an older guy. I don't think he's with us anymore. But I'm watching this infomercial. And before that, I grew up in the general contracting business. It was me and my brother and my dad, with a couple other guys. So, I see Carlton walk through these houses, with the buyers, and the buyers are saying, well, I bought this house for X and I put X amount in it and I sold it for Y. And I'm thinking to myself, something's not adding up to me here. It finally got to a point where I bought this course. I said, I got to see what's going on here. And at the time, I probably barely even knew what a mortgage meant. Right? I wasn't, educated in the real estate space at all. I bought the course. It was like a binder. It wasn't, back in the day, there wasn't a link. Hey, click this link, download the course.
Before the digital era.
Yeah, so he mails me this binder. It was like 3-ring binder with all kinds of CDs in it. So you listen to the CDs and you read, the verbiage and stuff. And I went through it and I stuck it on the shelf. And it sat on the shelf for probably a year. I did nothing with it. It's pretty typical, right?
Yep.
And fast forward to 1998. We moved out of the apartment, bought our house, and a buddy of mine who did our painting for the general contracting business, we got talking somehow about real estate. I don't even know how. I mentioned Carlton Sheets. He's like, oh yeah, because I have a few rental houses that I bought in Delaware County. And we got talking and he goes, you should, if you're interested, you should come join this. Not even join, just come check out this group that I belong to. It's called DIG. DIG. So I'm like, oh, all right. So I went, and that was in 98. And I just was dumbfounded of all the resources there. And, I'm kind of walking in green as a leaf.
Yep.
I mean, there was hard money people there and insurance brokers and a lot of other people that were way far advanced than me, and also, people that were just starting out too. So there was a wide variety of people to network with. I just hung out there for 2 years, and during those 2 years, I didn't know it at the time, but now looking back, I was lucky enough. They had Robert Kiyosaki come in, and I think he was promoting the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I remember telling my wife, I'm like, I don't really want to go tonight. I don't know who this guy is. I don't know, he's like a weird name and some book, I don't know. So she goes, I think you should go, just go. So I went. That really like changed my mind. The guy, what he was speaking to me, I never even heard. It was like unfathomable. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, I got to buy this dude's book. Bought the book, read the book. I'm like, all right, I think I'm onto something here. Like this is doable. And like the whole leverage thing kind of really spoke to me like, wow, you mean I could get a house and then have people pay rent, and you're kind of, as the owner of the house, the asset, you're leveraging their time and talent and labor.
Yep.
And you get to make some money off of that. Hopefully, right?
Hopefully. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but you didn't find that out yet.
No, that's a whole nother conversation. So the year 2000, I bought my first rental in Lansdowne, right on Wycombe Avenue. I actually still have it. And I, borrowed the funds from one of the vendors in Dig and got the hazard insurance from one of the vendors in Dig. And, I had my buddy, I'd call him felt like every 5 minutes. His name was Steve. Should I do this? Oh, I don't know. What do you think about this? And how would you do this? And the guy was a blessing. He really helped me a lot. And so did my hard money lender. He was very well established in the rental property world. And he really, really taught me a lot about the business. And, like with everything, once you buy your first one and take it through the full cycle. So I bought it, found the deal, bought it, rehabbed it, and rented it, and refinanced it. I'm like, wow, this thing works. And I just, like the floodgates open. I just kept buying and buying. Probably bought 12 in like a year and a half.
Dude, that's rocking and rolling.
Yeah, it was. It kind of became habitual. Started to meet other people in Dig and became friendly with them, and they ended up, providing the financing. So that really, as you know, there was no draws with these guys. They would just, if you needed, I don't know, the prices were so cheap back then. If you needed $80,000 between acquisition and rehab, they would just give you the $80,000. So that was great. And probably, we had twins right off the bat. So that was in 2004. Around 2004, I kind of slowed down, A, because, the twins were coming, and B, like, I kind of got spoiled of all these low prices. So 2004, we're getting close to 2008. The market's really ramping up. I would look at places and I'm like, I'm not paying. So, let's say if you were buying things for $20,000 and now all of a sudden in 2006, they're like the same house is, I don't know, let's say $30,000. I was hard headed. I'm like,
dude, that's a big increase, man.
Yeah.
Big increase.
But now looking back to looking of all the future value we lost, right? Of being, like kind of closed-minded. So I kind of took a hiatus and maybe bought like one or two around 2004, but nothing like what we were doing prior to that. And then in 2008, my job with my dad was like, we had a cabinet shop, different from, the renovation business.
Okay.
And I would run the cabinet
So
shop.
there were kind of multiple family businesses going on. Okay.
And it was a big place in Norristown, which we really needed. We were supposed to share it with another company. They bailed out at the last second. And, the realtor was like, well, you guys got to take this because we're not letting you out of the lease.
Gotcha.
So it was already a stretch being in there financially for my dad. And I remember in 2008, we were there from 3 to 8. The realtor came to us and said, hey guys, you got to move out because we just sold the building. I forget how long. He might have given us 60 days or something. So I'm thinking to myself, I only had about 12 places at the time. 12 or 14. And I remember this overwhelming voice come to me. And I used to tell my wife, like, I'm hearing voices in my head. You know, I couldn't explain what it was at the time, you know, spiritually wise, but it was just this overwhelming feeling. And it said to me, jump. And I remember, you know, talking to my dad. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give this real estate thing I'm gonna try it full time. Probably thought I was fucking nuts.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you start the conversation with I have voices in my head, you know, you got to be careful. You got to preface that properly.
Yeah, right. So, you know, because I knew, you know, business was bad because the economy just took a dump. And I knew it probably wasn't financially feasible to move the whole shop to another place. So it was like the stars aligned that then and there. So I went full time, and he's like, you know what? You better go file for unemployment. And I'm like, what's that? You know, because I never had another job aside from working in the family business. So I didn't know like how a lot of things outside my little bubble worked.
Right.
So I did file for it, and when I left my W-2, I had a $4,000 negative. So it was costing me $4,000 to live. I wasn't breaking in. It was actually costing me $4,000 with no income coming in, right? So I was $4,000 negative. And, you know, my wife didn't work because at that time we had our 3 kids. We had the boys, and then, you know, our little girl came along. So, you know, they were small. They were like, you know, they were all in diapers, put it that way.
Gotcha.
Right?
The expensive phase.
Yeah. And exactly. So
it's all expensive, but yeah.
So I just sat in my basement office, and I just said, what do I got to do to create something from nothing, right? So I started to meet some realtors, and, you know, they funneled me some deals and started to slowly buy. And Drew, you'll probably remember back then in 2008, like the housing, like the values dropped, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I shouldn't say the values, like the purchase price of the houses went back to something that I was a little bit more familiar with. But because of the, you know, that huge escalation in value, I was still able to get a high appraisal. So it was like a perfect little blend.
Okay.
So like you could buy something at 40, and I know the appraiser would be able to find something worth 80.
You could find something.
Right, because, you know, it was like a year span, because, you know, the house, it just took a dump like in 2 minutes, the housing market, right? So that was, again, the stars were aligned then. And when I went out, I didn't know the housing market like really took a dump. I don't know. I wasn't that in tune with the market.
Yep.
I just knew I had to make something work. So that's, you know, then I went back into the, you know, buying 1 or 2 a month phase. You know, again, borrowing the funds, you know, from the guys I met in Dig. I'm like, this is working out great. So my model was I'd buy a bunch, rehab them, rent them, get them performing, and then go to a bank and get like a blanket mortgage for like 5 properties.
Okay, gotcha.
So it was time to get the blanket mortgage, right? And I went to 7 banks, and, you know, I walked in and you know, presented my case, right? And they're like, I don't know if they kind of came out and said this, but you know, you could tell they were thinking. So they're like, okay, the housing market is in the toilet. You have no job, like you have no W-2 income. Your wife doesn't work, and you have very low liquidity, which I did then. And you want me to give you like a $500,000 loan? Yep. I don't think so.
Yep.
So it was discouraging. That's a whole nother mindset thing. But the 8th bank I walked into actually was a recommendation from a very dear friend of mine. I thought the same thing was going to happen. And it was kind of low tech back then. You kind of sit here where we are, and he's like looking at a couple little things, and he's like, oh, I don't know, it looks good to me. I think we can make this work. I didn't say anything. I felt like saying, are you sure? Like I don't really have anything over here, and I'm not very liquid. I didn't say anything.
Yep.
So it worked. They paid back all my private guys, and that's when people speak of the momentum stage, right? When you in your software development, right? You went through a momentum stage, and it's the hardest stage to get through, right? And once I was able to get through that, kind of the gates opened up a little bit more. And I didn't stop. It just became habitual to buy these assets. I just, I couldn't turn down a good deal.
Okay.
And we had about 90 when I stopped buying the single family rentals. I had some flips sprinkled in the beginning, but I just kept it cookie cutter. My brain can't work in a lot of different directions. I got to keep it stupid simple. So it's a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 1-bath row house. And, as you kind of learn, first you learn that you know the mechanics of the house by heart.
Of course.
And you pretty much can gauge what it's going to cost you. And you pretty much can gauge when somebody's charging you too much, right? Because you've done 60 of them before already. And you're buying the same exact thing, man.
Yep.
Same tenant, same rent amount, same refinance process. I just kept that model, and I never stopped.
You didn't deviate.
I didn't deviate. I think in sometimes people will kind of get that. All right, well, I done 10 flips. Let me jump over here and try this, and they kind of play out of their sandbox. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that's bad.
I think there's actually an argument that it is bad.
Yeah.
There's an argument that it is. It's the entrepreneurial curse. We always think the grass is greener on the other side, But
totally.
The grass is greener where you water it, right?
Very true. Uh-huh. Very true. And that's pretty much how I started. That's okay. That's pretty much the journey.
So take me back to that timeline real quick. So we're back in 2008, 2009, when you did that portfolio loan that you were talking about that was on the 8th lender, because there's a message to take out of that also, right? You had the persistence to say, I just got 7 no's and I'm still going to the next bank. I'm going to the next person to have that same conversation after being rejected 7 times. Because a lot of people, even after 1 no, they're like, dude, I'm deflated. I'm done.
Exactly.
It just isn't going to work. So you had the grit and perseverance to just keep going anyway, which is a massive takeaway. But what year was that? Was that like 09, 2010?
That was
when you got that portfolio.
I think that was probably 08.
08. Okay.
Yeah.
What was the rental market like at that time? Because obviously when you made that decision to just freaking jump, cut your W-2, go into that full time, I imagine your existing rental portfolio must have been performing, right? Like you probably didn't have a lot of vacancies, a lot of turnovers, non-paying tenants, or else you probably would have been a little more hesitant, right?
Yeah, the 12 that I had, when I had, they were fine. They were good. They were seasoned. I mean, I bought them in like 2000, 2001. So, I'm sure I had some turnovers and stuff, but
But it wasn't like the market values are dropping and tenants are also vacating or anything. There was no like correlation to the market crash to tenants kind of.
No, I did not run into that.
Okay.
I mean, fast forward when COVID hit, I got obliterated with that. That's a whole nother conversation. But no, these were. I probably wasn't. I kind of had the mindset. This will answer it a little bit more too. I always had the mindset of, if the rent's $1,000, let me kind of charge like $925. I never, just to make it affordable for people.
Gotcha.
I never really tried to squeak the top of the market, and I think, like in hindsight, looking back, that could have helped the longevity of those residents.
Absolutely.
I just they weren't getting hit over the head every month.
Yep.
And I gave him a decent place. It wasn't the Taj Mahal. It's a rental property. I had the mindset of like, if I would live there, then I think it's okay.
Yep.
So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that answers. So were all your tenants back then, and I guess now too, we can go into that, like Section 8, or were they government programs, or are they all cash tenants?
I think I had maybe 2 subsidized residents back then.
Okay.
I do remember learning that whole system early on, like the whole, Delaware County Housing Authority system. And the rest were cash residents. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It worked out fine. The housing authority, it's pros and cons.
For sure.
There's good things about it. There's bad things about it. So, it was fine.
Okay. So what was your main like acquisition strategy back then? And then kind of, fast forwarding a little bit to now, like where would you find deals? Were you buying from the MLS, relationships, sheriff sales? I had a few realtors, maybe 3 different realtors who I believe everything was on the MLS early on, like before I went full time, like the 08 or the, pre-08. Got it.
It was, they would send me like a hot sheet. You remember, that terminology.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I don't even know if there was, I guess there was email back then. Yeah, there had to have been. So that's who I really just relied on. I just, the amount of realtors kind of matched my capabilities.
The volume that you were looking to purchase.
I was capable of doing. Like I didn't have a team of people. It was just me. I didn't have a ton of liquidity. I only had a few different lenders.
Yep.
So you kind of have to match that volume.
Yep.
That you can't say, hey, I send me everything you have. I'm going to put my word to it.
Right.
And I'm going to buy everything when you only have like 3 lenders and, 1 bank that can refinance the lenders.
Yep.
I was always a person, and I still hold that to high value today of like, when I give you my word, I'll see to it. So I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you and say, to try to pump myself up to be this, I'll buy everything.
I'll buy everything that you send me over.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Because then, when the time comes
and you don't,
and I don't, then, you only have one name, and you only have your reputation to go off of until you really set some equity with people. And I didn't have a lot of equity with people at the time. So I only had my word and my, just the sheer persistence to make this thing work.
Yep.
So I couldn't, I couldn't, not that I would anyways, because it's against my integrity, but I couldn't really bullshit somebody.
Yep.
It would just come, I know it would have shot myself in the foot. So, and then, after 08, you have more contacts and you have some more lenders and you have a track record. That was the biggest thing, especially with the banks. Like, dude, you have no track record. Like
Right.
You have 12 places, but you kind of did that when you had a job. You had some.
It's different. It's definitely different, isn't it?
Massively different. It was a huge eye-opening thing to me because, I really started to think, holy smokes, I owe these dudes like a lot of, like the money element's irrelevant, right? But you still have, getting back to the integrity part, you still have your name on something. Like
100%.
And you still owe these dudes money, and you kind of, because I used to sign like a personal guarantee with them. I still do that today with lenders. So yeah, that's enough to, keep you awake at night.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Again, until you get out of that momentum stage.
Yep. Exactly. So on the lending side, if we're going back to like 2009, 2010, 2011, like on the acquisition, you would find a property that matches what you're looking to do. Were there any issues like with hard money lenders or private lenders to do the acquisition? Like did funding like kind of get constraints? Not on the acquisition side. I never had, again, there was enough deal flow and enough lenders that it gelled together. Like I didn't have too many deals and not enough lenders, or too many lenders and not enough deals. It was a good little combination there. Got it.
So when
on the acquisition stuff, was it like hard money lenders or was it private lenders that you were leveraging mostly?
it was probably in the beginning, it was definitely the one hard money lender.
Okay.
And then, like, they're not the easiest guys to work with, some of them, right? Just with all the draws and I don't know. I could go on and on.
Oh, yeah.
Just as well. So I kind of tried to see if I could find out an easier route. So I eventually did only borrow from the private guys. It was a much higher interest rate, but
peace of mind.
It was a peace of mind. And like we spoke before, you're paying for convenience.
100%.
And that convenience turns into speed, and which turns into, okay, well, now I can really buy a lot more assets because I'm able to speed up the whole process.
Yep.
And you're kind of beating time, so to speak. And time, time's not beating on you. You're going from, well, maybe I can only do 4 a year to 10 a year.
Yeah.
Now you have your physical tooth into something. You're taking a bite at a time, right?
Yep.
When you can get that speed and be able to run at that level. And look, nothing wrong with the hard money guys. I mean, it's great. It's just, and I'm sure they don't like the private guys.
Right. Just, I mean, there's pros and cons.
Right.
Either way that you slice it and everything, but I'm sure they know their shortcomings also. And it's like the draw process, and I understand why they need to do it and everything, protect their asset and all that. But for guys that are doing something consistent, repeatable, and for what it sounds like you were doing, same property types, probably same renovations, you're real dialed in on your costs, on your material selections, everything, right? So to drag you out with draws and everything when you have probably multiple going on at the same time, dude, it really constricts you on cash flow. And it's funny because somebody that hasn't done it, like hasn't gotten to the level where they have 3, 5, however many rehabs going on at the same time, like on paper, it seems like it wouldn't be that difficult of a challenge.
Correct.
Until you experience it, and you're like, holy shit, man, cash out, cash out, cash out, cash out.
Incredible.
And no money's coming back in till I refinance or till I sell. Or I'm getting a draw. And it's tough, man.
Very tough.
Cash flow, it drains you.
Very tough, very challenging. You couldn't have said it any better, Drew. Really, and still today is cash. It's one of the most challenging aspects of the business. It's an intensely cashly driven business.
Yep.
And like you just said, sometimes you're in the winter season and sometimes you're in the summer season.
Dude, yeah.
Like spiritually wise, sometimes things are up, sometimes things are down, and which is life, right? We have to have that in life. And I think, with people just starting out, if they can get through that mindset and accept that, that you have to fail, right? In order to scale, in order to move forward, you have to fail. I don't like to say fail. I say you have to learn a lesson. There's lessons. There's life lessons. You're going to get stepped on the neck, and if you can change that into, well, this is supposed to happen. I'm glad it's happening to me.
Yeah.
And not have the mindset of, I'm going to your software business probably. I'm going to start from, not saying you had this mindset, but I'm going to start from 0 and I'm going to get to 100 and it's going to be a straight line.
Right.
Yep. Nothing's going to happen.
Nope. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, right? The whole way.
And you expected that.
Yep.
But when you're first starting out and you don't know any of this stuff, it's hard to get stepped on day after day, because you're like, holy shit, what am I doing here? Like, is this going to work out? And but again, accepting that is part of the process is a game changer, which I think a lot of people, if they could overcome that and accept that mindset of, yes, I'm going to get kicked, stepped on the neck.
Yep.
And this is part of it. They'll be like, okay, I'm still on the right path.
I love that.
And I'm not, everything that's happening to me has happened to 10 billion people already. Like, exactly. I'm not trying to make the wheel more round here.
Yep.
I'm just, in this case, I'm just, buying a rental house, and I know that there's going to be problems. And I want the problems to come to me.
Got to embrace it.
I have to embrace it because it's part of the process. It's just, you're never going to not have that. With everything you do in life, relationships.
Oh man.
I mean, it's driving your car, flat tires. I mean, it's just, it's what it is.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's why it's so relevant to kind of shout that message from the freaking rooftop to real estate investors, because a lot of real estate investors get started for similar reasons, right? It's always like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it's always like time freedom, financial freedom, all similar things, right?
Exactly.
But early on, exactly like you said, it's not known that failure is a part of the process and that you have to go through a learning journey and all this development and everything. And one of the biggest traps, in my opinion, is there's so many gurus out there that their message, their attraction is selling the dream of building a business that'll run itself without you. And I fucking despise it, man, because it's not real. It's not true. How many people do you know that have a net worth, massive, huge net worths, that do nothing?
Correct.
I don't know any, man. I know some really, really wealthy people, and none of them just sit on a beach all day drinking cocktails, It's not real. There's always going to be work involved. There's always going to be fires to put out. And of course, some things can become a little bit more systematized and maybe even automated, I say lightly. But just that vision, if people believe that I'm doing something wrong if I can't leave and let my business run without me. That's what a lot of people preach is, you don't know enough if you can't walk away from your business for 3 months and it not fall apart. It's dude, come on. No CEO of any business in any industry can walk away for 3 months and not have the thing burned to the ground. I mean,
I agree with that. I think, look, can you get away for some time?
Of course.
Of course we can. But like you said, you as the business owner, we're carrying everything on our shoulders, and I'm not downplaying the team, right? But, the team goes home and we as owners go home with different things on our shoulders, right?
Of course.
And that's okay. We signed up for that. So, I I agree. Like when I'm away, like I'm always thinking, or I always want to check in. Is everything okay? But yeah, I couldn't visualize being away for 3 months. I mean, I guess there's some, like, I'm sure there's people who do it, but and maybe they know something that we don't. But yeah, it's a kind of like a fine line there. You know, you don't want to be too overly thinking about it on vacation, but you know, things still have to move forward and you might get a phone call and say, hey, by your team, hey, I think I got to run this by you, right?
Yep.
Like, what do you want to do here? Maybe it's a dollar amount thing or an emergency situation that they can't really, not that they can't figure out, but they feel better if you tuned in. I mean, I would always tell my team, like, if you're like 80% correct in your own decision without asking me,
just do it.
And if something gets screwed up, like that 20% gets screwed up, no one's going to die from it.
Yep.
And it's probably able to be talked about between you and me, and we'll figure out a process.
Yep.
So it won't happen again.
Yep.
You know, so you have to, I might be getting off subject here a little bit, but you know, you have to let people make mistakes. Like you have to let the team make mistakes, right?
Fully agree.
You can't be like the person who, well, just go to Drew and he'll have the answer. Like he's the Wizard of Oz, right?
Yep.
You know, you have to let them. Otherwise, how does the company grow and scale? Like
fully agree.
You know, and that's a whole nother conversation because it takes time.
It is, but I think I want to go there. I want to go to the topic of leadership and maybe hiring your first like people within the company and everything. But first I thought of something I don't want to forget.
Sure.
What do you think about the statement that rentals are passive income?
I think I used to think that that's an accurate statement. And because I believe that, again, with, you know, like the gurus and things, that you're kind of led Absolutely. To believe that, right?
Yep.
But when you're actively doing it and you're in the trenches like we are, right? And you're buying and you're renting and you're managing and you go into eviction court and you slowly kind of rephrase that of it isn't so passive. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes,
there's a part of it that's true.
There's is like, you know, people kind of physically send you income that's not earned by the owner. Mm-hmm. But that's probably the only passive thing about it, right?
Yeah,
that's
the
it.
Money keeps coming in,
right, correct.
But
exactly. So it's not 100% true statement. I mean, you're even if you have like the A+ team, like we were just talking, you know, stuff's going to happen. Like,
well,
you're going to have a fire.
If it was passive, you wouldn't need a team.
That's true too. No, that we just answered it. Yeah, no, you're very, very true. Not
so
like,
what was that like for you? Like how many units or what year was it that you decided that you needed to start recruiting a team in the first place?
So you might think I'm a little nuts. It wasn't until 2019.
Okay.
So prior to 2019, you know, I found the deal. Well, not really found the deal, but bought the deal, raised the money, you know, led the guys to rehab it. I wasn't like actively rehabbing at the time. I was when I first started, but you know, you're still managing the electrician and the plumber, the drywall guy, the roofer. You know, you're managing that timeline, that process. And now it's time to wrap that up. And now you put the other hat on of listing agent, right? So now you're advertising the house, showing the house, taking the calls from the prospective tenants, meeting them out there. Well, this guy said he was going to be here at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock comes, nobody shows it up, like all that. And then it's time to, you know, forward, but you know, you're still forward thinking of, all right, this is my 5th place. I better line up a bank now because these guys are going to get paid back. And I'm not saying the way I did it was right. And I don't even know if I would recommend it that way, but that's all I knew. Like I just grew into that. It was just habitual again. I didn't know at the time that, damn, dude, you could be leveraging other people, like other professionals to help you out. Like, what are you showing houses for, man? At 5, 6 o'clock.
Getting stood up.
Exactly. And it wasn't until 2019 when I first started to like realize that I think maybe there's an easier way here. And then I spoke to somebody, you know, Josh Hertz.
I know the name, yeah.
Yeah, see, he was the first guy I met with him a couple times. He goes, bro, you need an office. Get out of your, like, you got cash flow. Like, get out of your house. Go get an office. Just get an assistant. Just get, like, somebody who can, like, write your checks. Oh, by the way, you're paying bills at night. Trying to manage cash flow. So I did that. And, you know, I probably went through, I don't know, 4 or 5 people. And I never really, I kind of, you know, I kind of came to the realization with each of these separate people that they weren't really doing I couldn't really warrant it, right?
Okay.
Which, like, that's a whole nother conversation. That's partially was my fault. Like, did I properly put expectations? Yep. And I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
And like, I was kind of expecting them to know it or something, like without any true leadership. I had no idea what any of that meant at all.
Yep.
So I don't fault any of them. You know, they had some strengths and they you know, they did help me out. And the current person I'm with now, I brought her on, and back in 2021.
Okay.
She's still here. I just knew right off the bat that, okay, I think I found somebody that really gets it. She came with a lot of experience, and she was kind of like plug and play. And I'm not the easiest dude to work with, right? I think a lot of owners are a little out there in some way.
Yeah, we're crazy,
quirky,
dude. We're
right.
crazy.
So I think it does take a specific personality to work alongside people who were like visionaries and kind of say off the cuff stuff. And so that really helped me out. Like, she was able, first of all, like, I was at 1,000,000 miles per hour. I was like, shit was unorganized. Shit wasn't getting paid for. You know, like, when you're trying to do everything, you're not going to do everything. Yep. Some of it's going to fall through the cracks. So a lot of the stuff that was falling through the cracks because I just was trying to concentrate on
everything. Everything. You were trying to concentrate on everything.
Right. And it still wasn't working.
Yeah. So wait, how many units were you at around 2019?
It was 90.
90. Okay.
Yeah, it was
Got
still
it.
90.
That's a lot, man, to be self-managing. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're crazy. All right.
Yeah.
Carry on. Carry on. You're crazy. I get it.
And so, you know, it took a lot of time, you know, it took a lot of time, and B, it took a lot of convincing, you know, from her to me, her name's Michelle, to say, hey, we need Appfolio. You know Appfolio. So I was managing everything through QuickBooks.
Okay.
I had like, you know, 5 or 6 entities with different amounts of properties in each entity. And each entity had its own QuickBooks file.
QuickBooks. Oh my God.
And when you,
God bless you.
yeah, when you kind of construct that, you know, as to the owner, like you constructing your software, right?
Yep.
It's inside you. It's in your brain. It makes total sense.
Yep.
You're like,
and there
totally
is a system. It is organized.
Exactly.
Just
she comes in
not to anybody else.
Dude, I think within like 2 months, she goes, there's no way we can do this. Like, you can't scale. Like, I can't even track management. I can't track late fees. First of all, there's no management aspect in QuickBooks. It just, I'm like, oh, really? Like, really? And you would have spent how much? Like, how much is this shit? Like,
yeah, it sounds expensive. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sounds expensive.
It took, I was very resistant, and I finally said, all right, let's do it. Now, I have no idea how you would ever run a management company without some kind of, doesn't have to be Appfolio, with some kind
of
tech,
though.
Oh, my God.
Need it.
Oh, I never in a million years, I don't know how I ever did it. But again, like, you know, when you have like those blinders on, that's all you know.
Yep.
So, you know, then we went into, hey, we should get a leasing agent and a bookkeeper. And that was the kind of the height. And, you know, the office expanded a little bit. And that was, then I'm like, okay, well, I'm not just Jake, the owner, anymore. Now I got like people I got to like take care of.
Right.
And, you know, because they're like relying on me. And that I had no clue, no idea, no clue at all how to do that. And I ended up getting, you know, Joe Evangelisti.
Yeah, I think Joe's who connected us.
Joe
right?
is who connected us. So shout out to brother Joe. He actually did. That's a little story there. I had like 6 months of coaching with him.
Okay.
And he massively transformed my life. Just
I love it.
Like spiritually, business-wise. I mean, he really just kind of burned, like he stripped me down to zero and gave me the tools to rebuild. And that's when I started to learn about a team and how to be a leader. Like, I'm not a perfect leader, but, you know,
it put it on your radar.
Put it on, yeah. And you know, I started to read books, and that was great, because you know, now you're kind of delegating, and you know, my responsibility was to, you know, make sure that there's enough opportunities, you know, for the team to grow, and you know, we as owners kind of turn into the person that, all right, like, here's the vision, right? Because we think of things, right?
Yep.
And if you guys can help me
execute on that,
this vision,
yeah,
we all will go to where the vision is, right?
Yep.
So I'm not the kind of person, like, I think there's like 4 types of leaders. I'm not the type of individual where it's like, hey, I got this vision, I want to make $1 million. I'm just speaking rhetorically here. I'm going to slave you guys to death to make this $1 million, and I'm going to head over here and go enjoy myself for 6 months while you guys are stuck in the office. Like, that's not me. That wasn't my purpose, right? And I would say to everybody, this is where I'd like to go. This is where I see it, and I'm bringing you guys with me. I'm just the dude who drives the bus. Like, you know, you guys are going to make it happen.
Yep.
With me here. You know, we were all in the office together. This was before like the hybrid stuff, or before I accepted the hybrid stuff, I guess.
Fair.
And, you know, so we fed off of each other's energy. And where I made a mistake was, and this took me a long time to realize, is I would say, hey, you guys kind of facilitate the company, right? And I never like to be called the owner. I'm just a teammate, right? I just
love it.
And you know, they would realize that, but at the same time, even though I would say I'm giving you some responsibilities, I still would be like, I don't know if I want to say a little bit of a micromanager, and a little bit of where they would be like, well, you're telling me to do one thing, but then how do I really know to do it? Because you're the one controlling the budget, you know, meaning me. And got in a lot of arguments, and it took I think coach would always say, you have to learn to let go of the vine, right? You have to, if you trust these folks and you guys have a trust together, you have to let them be. Like, why do I have to work, like meaning me, like why do I have to ask a question about something that's probably not going to move the needle forward? Like I don't need to ask that question anymore, right?
Right.
My job, like our job is to push the needle forward. And how can I push the needle forward if I'm still kind of acting like I'm the controller of the office is what I'm trying to get at.
Yep.
And I was still holding on to that vine. Like I was still holding on, and I didn't give them full reign, even though I kind of thought I was telling them that.
It felt like you were, but
yeah. Like
I get it.
Subconsciously, I'm still like,
I have a person there. I have them in that role. Of course I did it. I did all the parts. I did the steps.
Exactly.
But did you let go?
Perfectly put. And I didn't. Yeah. And
it's hard, man.
It's very hard. I know, I'm sure that held back the wheels in motion. And I mean, I could talk about this all day, but it wasn't until I did come to head with my property manager, and I did let everybody go. Like I burned everything down to the ground. And then like 9 months later, I brought her back and I said, you know what, this time's going to be different. You run everything. We went to the bank. You have a ID card for the checking accounts. You can go in there, transfer money around. Like, if there's any high figure price that you're getting from a vendor, let's chat it up. I'd like to know about that, but like I don't need to know about emergency calls or lockouts or, rent amounts. I trust, you're going to rent the house at the right amount. Like I was all in that before. And it took me like burning everything to the ground to realizing why do I need to do, like, why am I thinking about the shit that I trust this person to think about. Right.
But that's probably it. You didn't really fully trust that person in that role, right?
At the time, I was subconsciously saying I don't, but I consciously did. Like I know
I totally understand.
The people are, and most of the stuff that she does better than me. Like my brain just doesn't work that way. Like like your brain probably doesn't only work.
We talked about it before.
Upstairs,
yep, exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So it's enlightening, and like the world of bullshit came off my shoulders, but it's hard. I can see with business owners, especially people who are wondering, why they're not growing, why aren't they scaling? Well, you're probably your own worst enemy. Like we were
almost always
1,000%. Like we're
the
dude,
I think it's even harder with guys like you or me, because I had kind of the same thing. It's like I built everything myself. I started everything from the ground up myself. I wore every single hat. And it's like, even when you do have in the back of your mind, there's a lot of things that I know that I'm not really good at, but I did good at that role in that time. And I got the deal. I got the property rented. I got it refinanced.
Exactly.
So, it's really hard to plug someone else in when the only reason I'm here is because I obviously did do a good job.
Exactly. That's really, really well said. It's yes. I guess it could be an ego thing.
It's absolutely an ego thing.
Like, just guys or gals, owners, like take step aside, man. Take your ego out of it.
Yep.
Concentrate on the real shit that matters. Because if you run out of opportunities, then the well starts to dry up, and that happened to me. I can live and sit here and say that I went through that. I took my foot off the gas, and I thought that, I'm not patting myself on the back. I thought that I was at a certain level I have a team now and I can kind of kick back, and it caught up to me and it bit me in my ass. And, again, it took me some time to reflect on that, and all the time and momentum. Actually, the momentum is the biggest thing. Because once you've lost the momentum, now it feels like I'm starting all over again. And that was a massive, massive mistake I made. And
So when you say that, do you mean from the perspective of like you let your foot off the throttle on acquisitions?
Yes, acquisitions.
Okay.
We did. I used to have, within the 90 properties, it was consumed of maybe 5 or 6 different entities. Like I was saying a little while ago, like 10 in here and 15 in here, and one of the banks, Valley, it was Valley Green, Univest, came to me one day and like, it wasn't a lot with them. It was like $1 million of property. And like, hey, we're kind of not really into the real estate anymore, and we need you to kind of cash us out. And it probably was at the end of one of the 5-year resets. So it wasn't like they're coming to me prematurely. I'm like, okay, I like, that's not one of the funnest things to do, right?
Yep.
So, and I kind of let it go a little bit, and then they kind of start putting the heat on me a little bit. I'm like, all right, no problem. So I found a broker who's like, hey, you know what? Why don't you refinance everything and put it in a new company and just have one mortgage, one note, and you'll probably be able to cash out, because I never really pulled out much money in all those years. And, at the time, this was in 2021, values were high again. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay. So to make a long story short, we did that. I was able to pull out a sizable amount. And that's when I thought like I made it. Like all those years of sweat and tears and blood equity or sweat equity,
it was worth it.
Here we are. Toilets and kitchens. Right. Here we are. And I totally took my foot off the gas. And it caught up to me. And, then things started to get bad again with COVID. And that COVID obliterated my Philadelphia portfolio to the point where I had to get out of it. And I recently did a few months ago. That was not a pleasant process. And I think again in looking back in reflection, somehow I hope to be able to connect the dots and say to myself, I had to go through that. I had to shed this in order to gain this here. And I had to shed this in order to reach the vision that I still have. And that's where I am now. That's so it kind of takes at times losing, I don't know if I want to say losing, but experiencing something at the time where you think, how am I going to survive this now? Kind of similar to you. You came in and, you did a renovation, you thought it was going to be X, and it was like Y. And the township, you had no idea the township was going to hold you up for 8 months. It's that same concept.
Yep.
But you needed to go through that to get to here.
Absolutely.
And here was more and bigger than what you had before.
Definitely.
It's not pretty, but getting back to that.
Yeah.
A little while ago that we were talking about, you have to expect that. You have to, if you don't twist, you don't change your mind and believe, then you're going to self-destruct and say, you know what, I'm screwed now. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. This is taking an extra 8 months. It's another however much more money. I just lost half my portfolio. You'll curl up in a ball and you'll never get out of bed.
Yep. That's the truth.
I think I don't want to get too spiritual here on the show, but
no, man, let's go. Let's go.
You just have to believe. You have to have massive, massive belief in, well, A, in yourself, but B, that you are destined for great things, right? Your vision that you think of and you're constructing in your mind, you're putting that out into the universe. You're speaking it out. Mm-hmm. And that energy that you're putting out will connect to similar energy that you don't even know is there yet.
Yep.
But it's coming to you because you're speaking it out. Mm-hmm. You're speaking it out. And it's my property manager, Michelle, had a saying when I first started. I thought she was nuts. She said, whatever is going to happen has happened already. And whatever's going to happen has happened already. This is just the dots that are going to take you to get there. Like you spoke this out. It's going to happen.
I like that.
And it sounds a little wacky. You know, it sounds like...
No, I get it.
It sounds a little crazy. It's like crazy talk. But I know, looking back, why did I find that? How did that eighth bank come to me? Like, how did that come to me? I thought, like you said,
in your mind, it was already done. It had already happened.
It already happened. And it had to happen to be able to continue on the path to the vision. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yep.
And
dude, I like to say, based on what you're saying, you'll probably agree with me here. I'm basically fucking delusional. But I use it to my benefit, man. I make up my mind and it already exists, dude.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I don't think there's anything that I've ever set out to do. And again, not patting myself on the back at all, because there's still so many things that I aspire to achieve, right?
You haven't even started yet.
But there's never been anything that I've set out to do that I haven't done.
That's it.
That's it. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, you know? And to the outside world, that may sound crazy for you and for what you set out to do. But if you're delusional in a productive way,
very true.
It's not a hurtful thing, right?
No. I mean, your software company is a perfect example.
Totally delusional. I mean, I should have never done this.
Right. And I'm sure there's a million people that told you that. Like you had
so many. So many.
You know what you were doing in business was very successful.
Yeah.
And you were on a really great path and still are on a great path. But something spoke to you.
Yeah.
You saw a problem that other investors had, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to solve this problem.
Yep.
And that's when it ignited for you.
Yep. Exactly right, man.
It's normal, like, for everyone to think everyone else is nuts, because that's not their story.
Yep.
You know, you probably think that other people are nuts. And so do I, in a respectful way. I'm not saying this in a derogative manner, but, you know, and that's okay, because everyone's on a different path, a different calling. And you might not understand someone else's calling or what season they're in.
Yep.
But that's okay, because that's not your path and their path isn't your path. And it's difficult, I find this actually extremely difficult, to align yourself with individuals who can relate to that. Like,
what do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean, like, I can relate to your story that, you know what, I'm going to invent this software. I don't know a goddamn thing about software development. Nothing. But I'm going to spend this. I mean, let's take out the money aspect. Sure. Money's just a byproduct of everything, right? I'm going to develop a team. I'm going to search out a team. I'm going to have a meeting with the team and I'm going to cast this vision to them. I can, like that doesn't sound nuts to me. It sounds like you're a man on a mission. You had a calling. You see an opportunity, and you're acting on it.
Yep.
And you had the fortitude to do so.
Yep.
And the know-how to surround yourself with like-minded people. I find it difficult to find like-minded people to where they see the positive in things. They don't see like, dude, Drew, are you nuts? Like they'll go right to that hole in the donut instead of the donut itself. Like we see opportunity first, and then
figure out all the steps along the way.
Figure
out the steps along the way.
And I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but people like that, they just think differently. And again, when you're, especially to whoever's first starting out, it's like vitally important to associate yourself with. It doesn't have to be like 1,000 people. It could be like one person.
Yeah, dude, absolutely.
That won't see that. Won't see that. Not that they don't know the hole in the donut's there. They see it, but they don't go towards that. They don't speak of the negativity first of what if they freaking what if themselves to death, and then then you're like, oh, maybe this software thing isn't a good idea, and then you forget about it. That's such a deep thing with people.
Yeah.
It's
very easy to not take action on something because
extremely.
Like it's the way we're designed. We're programmed
1,000%.
for fear to protect us from dying, man.
1,000%.
And it's like there's so many things that you can see or that you could hear. I heard one story about a guy when I was a kid that owned a rental property and had a bad experience, so I never bought a rental property.
Bingo.
It's like that's all that it takes, and that's why I think you starting by going to a diversified investors group.
Yes.
Dude, for me, it's like I started going to Delco property investors and everything, right? Just surrounding yourself with maybe not, perfectly like-minded people. They may not think the same things as you. They may not be from the same background as you, but they're on a similar journey.
Yes.
Right? And I think that's the most important thing is being around people that are on a similar journey to you, because maybe they don't have the mindset today that they need to become the person that they want to.
Correct.
But they're on that path. They're on that journey, right?
Very true.
So I think that's the best advice that I could give to anybody at whatever point in their career or life they are, is just surround yourself with other people that are walking the walk that you want to walk also.
1,000,000%. Really, very well said, man. Very, very true.
And then mentorship, obviously, since Joe was the one that connected us, Joe was a mentor of mine. He was probably my second mentor that I ever had. And dude, I was with him in like a mastermind group for 2 years. I'm a huge proponent of paying for coaches, paying for mentors and everything, because those who pay attention.
True.
And,
very true.
I just learned so many great things from people in my overall short career, and I know that I shortcutted my way to
1,000%.
a lot of things, man.
Yeah, I bet.
On a lot of things.
No bad. You paid for time.
Dude, leveraging to see what somebody else's experience and shortcomings and successes and what helped them along the way. And dude, that is one of the best shortcuts that there is.
1,000%. Totally.
You're trading money and you're literally buying time, right? You're massively accelerating the potential that you have to grow, to scale, to become a better leader, right? Dude, same thing. It's like probably before I met Joe, I didn't even know what leadership meant outside of like maybe sports or something like that,
Exactly. Totally.
Yeah, man. It's massive. It's made a huge impact in my life.
Another thing that I wanted to add was, I know you're married, like our wives, right? And I give a shout out to my wife with this, and I'm sure you'll agree with this. Like, again, getting back to that vision thing, you know, my wife, she believed in me, and she knew it. She knew it was going to be scary, and there was going to be a lot of ups and downs and a lot of uncertainty. But she did have belief, and I think it's important to be aligned, with your girlfriend, your spouse, your boyfriend, your husband, wherever you are, your significant other, whatever. Because they're the ones that are going to, feel your presence at the end of the day, and you're going to come home in 12 different moods on 12 different days. Yeah. You're going to have a good day, a bad day, a whatever day. And, she was, I knew, knowing my wife's personality, I know it was extremely scary for her. But she never really let it on, because when we're starting out on things, you're a little sensitive.
Of course.
And the human mind, like you just said, is designed for fear. So we start picking up on that. Mm-hmm. And so to have a significant other that didn't kind of pound the fear into you every time you walked over the threshold.
That's huge.
That's like another, like you kind of, all right, I'll take that win. You're like, all right, I won this day, because it could easily be the other way around.
Yeah.
Or in fact, they could leave. They're like, this isn't for me. I got to get the hell out of here. You're freaking nuts. You want to do this software thing? Are you crazy?
Yep.
Suppose we lose everything. And so that's important, for whoever is at that stage right now in their life. And it doesn't have to be real estate. It could be anything, or software development.
Dude, of course. Just having supportive people around you, and your spouse is the, closest person to you. So,
Exactly. And so I do want to add that.
Shout out the wife there.
Yeah.
Shout out the wife.
Yeah, and yours as well.
Oh, dude, absolutely. She knows, man. I would not be able to do any of the things that I've done if I didn't have the support of her. Like, for sure. So let me ask you, going back, because I know a lot of people that have built sizable rental portfolios over the years, but there's only a few that did that with it being their only source of income. Like, to your point, you stayed laser focused and you just focus on the rentals and everything. I know a lot of guys that it's like, okay, well, they did some flips, or they did some wholesaling, or they started being a broker for hard money along the way to generate extra active income. But you stayed focused, man. So like, what was that like, kind of, because you mentioned that you didn't pull too much cash out of stuff. So you were essentially living off the cash flow, right?
I was. And I that's a great question, especially, for people who are still in the business. I wouldn't recommend it. You're probably not really supposed to do that, like to the extent I was. And if I could have went back, would I have changed something? I probably would have done more flips to make that lump sum of cash, to offset.
So you had more active income. You had more cash coming in, right?
Right. Not just, $200 a month, but hey, let's do this and see if we can get 10 grand and this will pay for the real estate taxes.
Right.
So that was not the greatest way to do things. It just added to a lot of the stress. What I was able to do, I was able to formulate it in a way to where I would time it. I would, buy 5 and then rehab them, rent them, get them stabilized. And like I said, I would go in for a blanket loan. And at the time of the blanket loan, the bank would pay for the taxes, like the real estate taxes and stuff that the cash flow didn't pay for, or I didn't escrow properly because I was kind of taking too much out. Not the smartest thing I did. I think you want to call it a little bit of luck, maybe, that the timing aligned like that. But if, you know, eventually that got more difficult, and, you know, I had to develop more sources of income. So yeah, I mean, if anyone was starting out, I would definitely recommend like a lump sum cash business, like either a wholesale business or flipping or something that's going to bring you, you know, more than $200 a month. Mm-hmm. You know, until your rental portfolio gets to a point where maybe you can take a little bit more draws. But as you know, that it's like a slow burning flicker of flame that business is. It takes years. I mean, I've been in this 25 years. It's not a rich get quick, as you know, it's not a rich get quick business. Mm-hmm. You know, it's equity. Yep. You know, I mean, but you can't, buy a carton of eggs for $8 or with equity. Yeah,
I had a mentor that always said that you can't eat equity.
Exactly. Good saying. So wasn't the smartest thing that I did. But I'm not, what I'm going to say is I'm not trying to defend this. I'm not trying to sprinkle sugar on it. But and you could probably relate to this, when you start out at zero or like negative, some things aren't going to go the way they're scripted on a spreadsheet to go. You're in the trenches, you're trying to survive, you're trying to provide for your family, and it's extremely cash driven. Mm-hmm. There's bills coming in on this side. You're trying to get properties rented on this side. And when you're in that state of desperation, you can't do it to a textbook plan. It doesn't work like that, man. Yep. And I was in a massive state of desperation. Determination and desperation. I was kind of in both. I was determined to make this thing work, but it determined in a sense where I was also desperate. I needed this thing to work. So, I mean, I robbed Peter to pay Paul from every which way from Sunday. Mm-hmm. I was like, you're shifting money all over the place. Yep. You're burning up credit cards, lines of credit, and it's just it. It's the way it is.
It's chaotic.
I'm not saying that's a beautiful thing. It's massively stressful, but again, when you're trying to get through that momentum stage, you just got to make shit happen. And most of the time, it's not going to be pretty, and it's not going to line up on a spreadsheet, and it's not going to compute.
Yep.
It doesn't compute. But as you and me both know, you have to kind of put that on the back burner, man. Mm-hmm. Like, hopefully it'll compute.
And just go anyway.
You got to go. You just got to, and have the faith, the belief that the shit's going to work out at some point in time. But Michelle, my property manager, would really fight me to the nails about this. I would always say, hey, I don't need to know like every single thing right now, because I know it's going to work out. And that's how I built the portfolio. I didn't know everything.
Yep.
Like I'm not that smart of a dude. Like I didn't know everything. I just knew if I bought this asset in an ugly manner, maybe, robbing Peter to pay Paul, paying 15% in interest, whatever. I bought this asset and we kept this asset for years and years and years. I know eventually the payment will become smooth again.
Yep.
And I still kind of have that mentality. Mm-hmm. What is it? Fire, aim, ready?
Yeah, man.
And that's not for everybody. And that would drive her freaking nuts because, she's like the opposite.
Right. Which is good.
Yeah, it's
a whole
just
other
good
conversation, and it balances everything.
1,000%. And my wife is a little bit about, hey, let's kind of take a back seat and figure this out a little bit. But, we don't have any, like owners, right? We have very little patience.
Yep.
So we just want to do shit.
Just go. Yeah.
And I'm not saying go in it haphazardly, right? You still have to know your numbers in this, but dude, I don't need to know every minute thing here. Like we can overcome that last 30%. We'll figure it out. Like it'll work itself out. Did you know everything when you went into the software business?
I knew nothing.
Here we go.
Nothing. Yeah.
But you were confident and you had belief.
Yep.
And I'm sure now, years later, you're starting to see the road get a little bit smoother.
Absolutely.
And, going back to what we spoke about, what would have happened if you what-ifed yourself to death? Mm-hmm. You're laying in bed at night going, am I fucking crazy here?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing this. I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning. I'm going to burn the whole thing to the ground.
Yep. Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. Had I not done that, I'd have a lot more money today. Right. But long term, I love to play. That's why I'm still in it. But
right, exactly.
So is your wife now, or was she ever like kind of involved in the business with the rentals, or?
Not the rental. Very early on, I remember, like before I even had my first place. So I guess that was in 1999. We would cruise around Upper Darby. I don't know why I picked Upper Darby, but we would kind of cruise around and look for realtor signs, and she would write down the broker's number. And I'm going through like the different sections of Upper Darby, Stonehurst and Bywood, and it's a little nicer over here, and this looks a little bit more ratty. And I actually found a realtor who I eventually found a realtor that I bought my first place off of, from her writing down the names and numbers. So she did early on help, not so much in the management part, because she had the kids. And then later she got her license, her real estate license, and she would help me with the flips. I would give her, back the place to sell. If she didn't find it, I would, get her the back end listing to sell it. So yeah, she was active in it. Yeah.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, it worked out well.
With my wife, she was more involved on like the rental side as I kind of took my eye off of that, and I was focused on the wholesale company and the fix and flip company and everything. She kind of took over some of the management. Nice. And then same thing, I guess 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, when she was having like our middle child. And then it kind of was the same thing. My son, he's 3. It's like whenever she was in that phase of having a baby, it's like, oh, well, you can't really, that's a very time consuming thing,
Right.
So, I kind of transitioned into having my executive assistant take over some of the things with the rentals, and now they're awesome. They just kind of collaborate and coordinate everything.
That's beautiful.
Between them and all that. And I have no idea what's going on.
That's beautiful. That's great.
Well, one of my buddies asked me the other day about something related to the process of getting a rental unit ready or approved for Section 8 or any other subsidy program. I'm like, dude, I have no idea. I have no clue.
Yeah.
Yep. No clue.
And that's okay. You let go of that vine.
Yep.
That's not you anymore.
It's getting done.
Yeah, it's getting done. It's still connecting. The dots are still in motion. And you're at peace with that.
I'm at peace.
That's great. You're on to bigger, more profound things, more bigger visions.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. That's great. That's perfect.
So let me ask you about COVID. You mentioned that you ended up with a lot of turnovers and then the Philly portfolio. I know people still to this day getting slaughtered because of I don't even want to call it evictions in Philly, because the evictions don't freaking happen. Right?
Exactly.
So what was that like?
It was like...
And was it early on in COVID?
It wasn't. That's the weird thing. So, COVID hit, right? Everything shut down. And the residents were able to I find some subsidies. I call it free money. I don't know if that's the
I think they got
correct.
up to like 9 months free, like that first year or something like that.
Yeah, with they used to. I forget the name of the program. They had like different, like tier 1, 2, and 3. It wasn't even tiers. It was. Like they'd have one fund. I guess that dried up. Then they opened up another fund.
Right.
And they had like 3 of them. So early on, they were pretty successful in the folks that were truly affected by it were pretty successful in getting the funds, and the good thing was the funds came directly to us. They just plopped right into the checking account.
Yep.
The resident was out of it. I'm sure they got some kind of utility subsidy or something. So before we know it, we had like residents who were really great paying residents hop on the bandwagon, and they're like, hey, let me get some free money.
Yeah.
And they historically didn't have any issues paying the rent. And so fast forward a little bit, the free money starts to run out. We had some folks at the end when it ran out. We were caught with some folks who were waiting to get approved, who never got approved, but they could be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months in arrears with us, and we're thinking they are going to get approved,
right?
And it was literally like we woke up one day and like, well, the fund's out of money, and we were caught carrying numerous properties in that situation.
Yeah, man.
Court system's pretty much shut down because of COVID, right?
Yep.
And so now you can't get the folks out, and they're not going to move because they got used to not paying rent.
Yeah, right.
And receiving
and they're
the
also
free
not
money.
being responsible and saving
Correct.
that money or anything.
Correct. That was non-existent.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think the longest person we had was 1.5 years. We finally got them out. And, I understand, hey, people move out. I get it. So what happened with me is, we finally get them out. And, these are like expensive rehabs. This wasn't like going in.
The turnover's bad too, right?
Turnover was freaking expensive, man. A couple of the folks were there for years and years. The place was beat to shit. And, at that time, it looked like people were offering rental properties at a little or higher quality. Not to say mine were bad, but mine were kind of basic compared to what they're offering now. And yes, the rent amounts went up. So we had to spend like more money than I would have thought to get it.
Because you need to be comparable to everything else. Yeah.
So that was like a double whammy it alleviated the cash flow. It was, it alleviated it, and it went on and on. I had 21 vacancies in 12 months. Like sometimes I don't even have one vacancy in 12 months. And if you're talking like $10,000, $15,000 rehabs, I mean, you could do the math.
Yeah, and we're also adding in the uncollected rent
Correct.
for probably 3 months as a minimum, but some of them, like you said, 1.5 years.
Yes, correct. So you kind of take all of that and put it in a
lump it
pot
together,
and mix it together. It's like, what am I doing here? And I was able to get some funds to get through like maybe like 50% of it. But then it just never really stopped. It just, it felt like I would get one place rehabbed or 2 places rehabbed, get them rented, and then another couple folks would kind of
do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or they would have to move because they couldn't afford it, or whatever the case would be. At the end of the day, I have another vacancy. So it's like 1 foot forward, 1 step ahead, but you never gained any momentum. Like right. I never really got out of it.
Yep.
And it's really funny. I don't know if it's funny, but it really only happened in the city. Like I had everything in West Philadelphia. Drew, I tell you, Delco, I never, like I had a couple folks here and there, but nothing like Philadelphia. I don't know what it was. I don't know why.
You do know what it is. They're protected. They're protected.
Well,
in the
very
city.
true. That's like a whole nother conversation, but and that's when I first started because not to jump around here, but when I think I bought my first place in 2009 in West Philly, and it was great. Like the city was fine, same house, same tenant, same construction costs, same rent, but the taxes are like a quarter of the amount. So I'm like, oh, screw Delaware County. I'm going to concentrate in West Philly.
Delco taxes suck.
Yeah. Yes. But Delco never, they closed down for COVID, but they reopened. They never changed their parameters. It's still, 30 days you can get somebody out, still to today. And, his city was nothing like it is today when I got in there. And I just pulled the plug on it. I couldn't, I don't know what it is. Like, it's such a different animal out here, for the taxes are still out here, but the Philly taxes go up, it feels like every year, every 2 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the last couple of years, yeah.
My insurance like quadrupled on the Philly places. I'm kind of scratching my head saying, it's the same damn place I have over across the county line. Like, why is it 5 times as much? So, again, I had to kind of burn that down. And, when I sold it, I didn't make any money. Like it actually cost me money to get rid of it because prepayment penalties with the lender. I had to get attorneys involved because it wasn't a normal commercial loan. It was like it's some other kind of.
You said
loan.
it was a blanket loan that you had on like all the properties at that point too, right? So you had to separate them.
Well, no, they let me. I still have the Delco with the same lender.
Okay, gotcha.
But there was transfer tax. The attorney fees, water fees, so I didn't walk away with anything. It's not like, I had these properties for 10 years. I walked away with $1 million. It actually cost me to get out of it. But
how many units was it?
45.
45. Did you liquidate them as a package?
I
as
did.
A portfolio?
I was able to. I used a realtor. I used a realtor who actually sold me a lot of them.
Okay.
And I have a pretty strong rapport with him. I said, hey, this is where I'm at. Can you get me a buyer? And he has a slew of other packages like mine because he said everybody's getting out of the city. So he did find a buyer, and one of the issues was the lender. Well, a couple things. My realtor put the asking price at a pretty high number, right? And the offer that he got was like $1 million less.
Okay.
So the lender's like, we're not going to accept this. You told me it's worth 5 something, and you're giving me an offer for 4.5. So, so he's like, okay, I'll find another buyer. Now this is like months. And because there's probably not a lot of guys that have that liquidity or that capability to plunk down, millions of dollars. But there's a lot of guys that'll buy 1-offs and 2s and 5-offs. And I didn't really want to go that route. I don't know if the lender really wanted to go that route either. The guy comes in at the same price, same offer. And these guys wouldn't budge. And so the lender finally realized, okay, well, I guess that's all it is. So, they accepted it and due diligence and this, that, and the other thing. And it finally settled the end of January. So, not that long ago. Okay. So I have to, I'm in a season of rebuild now. Like I'm still in winter. I don't quite see spring yet.
Yeah. I get it.
So, the next turnaround, I want to get multi-unit buildings, like apartment buildings.
Okay.
Equity partners, And that's what I'm concentrating on now.
Okay.
Now, we still have the Delco stuff.
Right.
It's still there. It's humming away. And that's where I'm at.
What do you see like the future of the rental market look like? Whether we are talking about single family residential or a small multifamily 1 to 5 unit or even larger units, like, do you think it's strong? Do you think we have a potential to see like rental values go down?
I can only speak to, honestly, I can only speak to the stuff that I have in Delco, like the single family 3-4 bedroom stuff in Upper Darby area, Fallcroft. Drew, in my entire life, I never would fathom that you could get the rental amounts that you can today.
And that's why I asked that question.
It's astonishing to me. It's unfathomable to me, because when I first started out, same house. Now maybe we have a little bit nicer finishes in there, but we're talking about the White House quality here.
Yeah, you're still talking about a row home.
Sure.
And
it was $750, and I remember saying to my buddies, like, "Oh man, you got $750 for that 3-bedroom, 1 bath?" Yeah, I got $750. That was
five,
like,
yeah,
that was like a lot of money.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like over doubled that by now. I mean, we have a place that the residents paying $1,800.
Yeah, man.
Now, it was freshly rehabbed, but again, it's not a flip quality rehab, right?
Yep.
I don't put in hi-hats or dishwashers or finished basements or anything like that.
Yep.
Never in a million years. So to answer your question, I maybe I shouldn't say this. I don't know what I should say, but I can't imagine it growing exponentially more than that. Like, I can't, maybe it will. Maybe it'll get into the low 2000s. Like, if you have AC and a 4-bedroom with air conditioning, and you probably could get into 2000s. Michelle would know better than me, but I don't, like, I try to max the rent out now just because everything is.
You need to now.
Yeah. It's not like, hey, and I still have a few folks that are like at 1,100.
Oh my God.
That she just wrote them a letter and say, hey, your rent's going up a lot. Not to $1,800, but like everybody's going up to $1,400 who's less than $1,400. I'm not putting any more money in my pocket.
No, I know.
You know this.
That's the sad and difficult thing, right? It's very easy from the tenant perspective to just be like, you're a greedy ass landlord and we hate you, and that's why we're okay and we're comfortable saying we're not going to pay, and then evict us and go through the whole process and everything.
Totally.
Because it's easy for them to paint us as the enemy, and it's like, we're not, man. The economy is the enemy. You know? Like you just said, man. Been building this portfolio for 25 years and you just had to liquidate 45 units. You didn't do that because you're printing freaking money.
Exactly.
It's like, I liquidated because I had to. You know?
Exactly.
It's tough, man.
Yeah. It's really giving us the ability to have a little bit extra to put back in the property when things go, like a roof or, how much, everything is like 10 million times more expensive than when we started out.
Exactly.
It's incredible. It like just blows my mind. Dude. So we're just hedging against, like the increased rents is just a hedge against
taxes, everything's going up, man.
Right. So it's that's kind of where we're at. So, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if it went up a couple $100. I cannot see it going down. I can't see it going down. And there seems like I know when we rent a property, like we'll put it up for rent in Delco, it's incredibly the amount of people that apply for it. Now, I don't know if they can afford it or not. That's a different conversation, but there's tons and tons and tons of interest in it. You still have to go through the application process. I never, and I feel like in the West Philly area, I was not able to push the rent envelope. Like I was not able to get what you can get in Delco and still have that interest in, like if you put something up for $1,500 in West Philly, your phone might not even sit. Exactly. Now
you got to know your market. Yeah.
Got to know your market, where you're at and what you're offering and all that. But, the general conversation is here. It's just a different animal in Delaware County.
Yeah, man. I started having the conversation with some of my buddies, like after COVID happened, because that's when rents really kind of started going through the roof and everything,
Yeah, very true.
And a bunch of my buddies, it's like, okay, they had a turnover and maybe they did a little rehab, right? Get it rented back out. But just like you said, it's like, well, my previous tenant was paying $1,300 and now I can get $1,800. So everybody's high-fiving, everybody's like, this is awesome. But I was kind of, even then, I was looking at it from the perspective of the tenant, and it's like, I don't know. This still hasn't come to a head yet, but I don't know. I see the writing on the wall a little bit. Like, very simply, maybe people can afford that today, but as the economic pressure squeezes them, the tenants that we're renting to, dude, we're very low on the chopping block for them, right? It's like, they're absolutely going to pay their phone bill first. They're going to pay all their utilities first. They're going to put food on the table first, obviously. And as soon as, they can't pay, you're the one they're not paying anymore, right? And it's like, maybe they can afford it right now, but they're maxed out, dude. Nobody's making more money now than they were 5 years ago, right? No. Like, most people are making the same or less money than they were. And your dollar is it's stretching less than it used to, So, agree. Dude, at what point does it just become unaffordable for people? And it's a complex topic, right? Because housing, there's no alternative there either, because they can't buy a house either.
Correct.
So it's tough, and I don't know where it's gonna land, but affordability is a huge issue.
I agree with you 100%. It is. And I look, I don't need, again, getting back to that, I don't need to squeak every penny out of the place. So if 1,800 is good, I wouldn't let it sit another 4 months to try to get 2,000.
Right.
Like, that's idiotic. And and to go into what you just said, I might be able to afford 2,000 the first 2 months, but then things start to move sideways, and it's a bad situation for both of us. The landlord, the resident, we're both getting stressed. It's just not good. So I'd rather be at the 1,800.
Yeah.
And be a little bit lower.
Absolutely.
And offer them a decent product and know that, hey, I feel confident these folks can afford this for the long haul, and, hope that nothing catastrophic happens, but that's out of our control.
Right. You definitely don't want your tenants being in there for 3 months and then price shopping and being like, oh, I can get something else, a couple $100 cheaper, Right. That's no good.
No. And so, I agree with you 100%. I think that, with nothing, I'm not here to talk politics, but, it's clearly Trump and the Rocket Man are shaking things up.
Rocket Man, I love that.
So, I don't know where they're going to go or where it's going to end up.
Yep.
So it's things that we, us as owners, we kind of toy with that in the back of our head, and
yep.
I think it's a great, as a landlord, I think it's a good position to, if a resident comes to you and says, hey, I'm struggling here a little bit, would you ever think about lowering the rent? I mean, I would do that in a heartbeat. Like, I don't know, like, I can't lower $500 a month.
Right.
$150 or whatever, kind of, would that help?
Yep.
Or because first of all, as you well know, it's going to cost us a gargantuan amount of money to turn the thing over. Even if it's like rehab 3 months ago, you're still going in there and painting the place.
At least. Yep.
And so I think it's, to get back to my point, I think to be in a position and to keep things tight in your business, as in not being like super over leveraged. If I got to cut rents at a couple people just to keep them in there, to keep the train moving for all of us.
Yep.
I'm going to do that.
Yep.
So, but we could talk about that for hours. That's, that starts out, you're able to do that when you buy it right? You're not doing that if you're massively over leveraged and you need I need $2,000 a month to make $100. Well, dude, you're already upside down, brother.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just, and the numbers are the numbers. You can't stretch the numbers in this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And be patient. If this property doesn't work, and then the next property will, and don't get emotionally attached to the bricks and the mortar.
Yeah.
I really like this. I like how it faces east. I can see the sunrise. And dude, none of that matters, bro. Mm-hmm. It's all dollars and cents at the end of the day. And I always found out, and my first hard money lender taught me this. He said, if it doesn't work out on paper, why are you going out to see it in person?
I love that.
The bricks and mortar aren't going to make your paper calculations work.
Yep.
And, buy it, stick to your formula. Like mine was, I knew I would just reverse engineer everything, as I'm sure, a lot of people do, not rocket science. I would know that the bank would give me 70% loan to value of what the property appraises for.
Yep.
So then I would just reverse engineer that. If the place is worth $100,000 fixed up, I know when I go into the bank, they're only going to give me 70. Mm-hmm. So I got to make sure, and then, it needs $10,000 rehab. Now we're down to 60, throw in another few thousand for whatever. All right, now we're down to 55. Let me see if I can get this thing for 50.
Yep.
And so you're basically buying like 40, 50 cents on the dollar. And it's the guys that, because, when I wasn't doing this thing to bring money to the table to cash out my lenders. Right. I didn't want to come to the table with anything. Mm-hmm. It's the people that, they get impatient. They want to buy their first one and all right, that's good enough. I'll throw in $10,000 for the deal. And, that's maybe fine if you want to buy one or two a year.
Right.
But if you can't scale with that, you're going to run out of cash.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is such a long train of payback. It's going to take you forever to get paid back.
Yep.
So the numbers are the numbers, right?
100%. So I think that's great advice for somebody that's getting started and they want to do their first deal.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I always hate is when somebody just asks me, what advice would you give to somebody starting out? And it's well, dude, it really depends, because my advice to one person is going to be different to the next person, because it really does come down to, first and foremost, what do you want? You know, true. Do you only want to buy one property a year because you're a doctor and you make $400,000 and you're just trying to have a tax shelter? Because it's true. The answer for that guy is going to be very different than the guy that's well, I'm 25, I don't have credit and I just want to get started. I want to have, right? It's totally different things.
Totally. It's funny. You just said something about what do you want? So a little story, when I was coaching with Joe, it came to a point where, we started a session and he asked, how you're doing? I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this or if I want to get into wholesaling or if I want to continue to buy the houses. And so he goes, what do you want? Just in that tonality, that's the soft tonality. And I hemmed and hawed a little bit and he goes, what the fuck do you want? And he said it, he said it, Joe, he said it. And it kind of put me back in my seat. I'll never forget this. And I couldn't answer him. I couldn't answer the man. And the reason I couldn't answer him is, it sounds like a simple question. What do you want? Oh, I want to make more money, or I want to, I don't know, I want this car, or I want to buy a boat, or, that's surface level, right? But if you sit in silence with yourself and you think, and you really dive deep and you think, what do I want? What do I want? It took me 3 weeks. It took me 3 weeks before I could really come back with a deep answer to that. And, I think people, if they did that a little bit more, or we all do that a little bit more, I should say, we would be able to move in more in a direction that will serve us, and not in a direction where we see some shit on social media. Oh, I want that car. But that's such a tangible, that's something that'll give you excitement, right? But is that what you want, right? What do you want? What speaks to you? What moves you? What does your soul need? And that he really straightened me out with that, like asking me, what is your why? Like, my what? Like, what is your why? Why are you doing this? What is your why? What is your why?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think if you ask somebody that question in that way too early on in their journey, they're not going to know what the fuck you're talking about, because right. For everybody, it does start out the same. Like I said, taking it back to most real estate guys say the same thing. Started with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yes. I want time freedom and financial freedom. It's like everybody has the same thing. I think where it becomes impactful to reflect on things like that and kind of dig deeper is like, you've made some money. You've done some things. You've built something, right? And then it's like, interesting. Well, why? Like,
very interesting.
Because that to get to where you were, that you experienced some financial success and maybe some spiritual success also. You have a feeling of accomplishment,
true,
so to speak. That to go to that next level of whatever that next fucking mountain is, it's going to be a lot of pain to get there, right?
Very
so
true.
It's like, is it worth it, right? Now, like, I can look and be like, yeah, is it really what I want to do? Because there's a lot of ways to make money. There's a lot of ways to put food on the table for your family and everything.
True.
And a lot of times there's easier ways to do it than the ways that we had set out to do and everything. And once you have some money behind you and everything, you kind of have more options. That's when I think searching inward and really asking yourself that starts to make a difference. And it makes sense too, you know?
That's a very good point. That was very well said.
Thank you.
I like that. Yeah, it's spot
I thought
on.
deeply about a lot of this stuff too. And like I said, I think there's such a blessing in having, high level coaches and mentors to guide you through things and ask you the difficult questions like that. But I think first, for everybody, it comes down to just go make a bunch of fucking money.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and you're going to get punched in the face a lot. Like you said, like we've been reiterating through this, it's going to happen. No two ways about it. And it doesn't matter if you have the best coaches or mentors in your corner, it's going to happen anyway. But once you get to a certain level, dude, I think having coaches in your corner is the best thing that you could do.
I agree with you. What is your why?
It's deep, man.
Lay it on me, brother.
Without going through the whole story, I started. My dad was also in construction.
Right. I remember that.
And I lost my dad like 2-3 years into my real estate journey, and that fucked me up.
How so? I mean, aside from the losing your dad, but was it more than that? I mean, was it a pretty integral part in your life? Were you guys?
Yeah, we were really close. And it's like, at that point, he was basically my business partner too.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't just like I lost my dad. It was like I lost my business partner.
Oh, smokes, yeah.
And just going through that, like I look back now and I reflect, and I'm thankful that I had so much shit that was kind of wrong at the time, like because when he died, we were like right in the middle of 3 giant renovations.
Holy
and I had never been fully immersed in the construction side. Wow. Now it's like, I got to figure all this out, because if I don't, I'm going to lose the roof over my family's head. So I never really slowed down to cope, and I just kind of grinded and fucking got things done, right? And when I kind of had a chance to breathe, it's like, that's when I started asking myself, like, do I really want to continue to do this first and foremost? And when I decided that I did, one of the things that I've kind of always since then had in the back of my mind that I can't fully articulate what it is and what my purpose is. But since then, I've just kind of had this weight on me that while I'm on this earth, I want to make sure that I do everything that I possibly can to, in some way, shape, or form, make this world a better place. I don't know what that means fully, but I do know that it means that I have to be the best version of myself. I know that it means I have to constantly challenge and push myself. And I don't know, maybe it'll be software. Maybe it'll be something else totally, entirely different, right? But I want to make an impact while I'm on this earth, man.
I think that's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. It's very, very inspirational.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice.
And I'm delusional enough to believe that I have the ability to do it, man. So I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And for right now, like what that means for me is having conversations like this with people that are on a path of success to whatever that means for them and sharing your journey along the way. Like, dude, what you shared today is going to be immensely valuable to a lot of people. Like everybody, I mean, for the last 10 years at least, like the Burr method is, It's the buzzword, dude. Everybody wants to go out and buy rentals and everything. And like, I think your story highlights not just the potential of it, and it validates that it's possible, but you're also not just sugarcoating it and giving the sunshine and fucking rainbows. Yeah. It's real, man. It's like there's some pain in there. There's some struggle in there. And people relate with that. And I hope that it doesn't dissuade people from taking action and moving forward and growing and building. Because, again, kind of the theme of a lot of what we're talking about is like, dude, you're going to get punched in the mouth. It's fine. But move forward, right? Because there's so much potential and there's so much wealth to be generated in the real estate industry. Very true. That, dude, it's a whole nother topic entirely. But what we do is, it's really necessary, man.
I agree.
It's really necessary. The government can't do it. Like, nobody can really do what the local landlord does, or a flipper, or a wholesaler for that matter. It's like they're all essential in their own way, and it's important.
That's an interesting point. I never really viewed it that way, but yeah, I guess to take off what you're saying, like us personally, like we're providing housing for people.
Yeah, man.
That can raise a family there, that can come home to a safe environment, right? That's affordable and habitable, and not only like that's one aspect of it. But to be in this for the long haul, not just like, hey, okay, let's do a 1-year lease and you're going to start in January, but just to let you know, I'm selling the place come December. Well, that doesn't make sense for anybody. We're providing longevity for these folks and these families. And another thing I like is you'll get people say, hey, Drew, do you have any other houses in a different school district? I kind of, my family, we're getting to a point in time where we can afford a little bit more. We can afford to be in a different school district so I can give my child something more than I had when I was, and that's just that's a whole nother conversation. I mean, you're getting into just the power of giving back and the power of being a solid human. And that's a somewhat of my why.
Lay it on me, man.
I want to, and again, I don't want to come off like I'm bragging or anything. What I'm going to say, I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way. I'm like one of the most down to earth people.
No, I appreciate you sharing and being vulnerable enough to share, man.
But I want to make an unfathomable amount of money, but I want to use that as a tool to give back. I might even get a little emotional here. I want to use that to give back, to help folks that maybe, look, there's a million different variations. Folks who maybe can't afford school supplies for their kid, or maybe need a little bit of help each month with food, like to host like a little food bank in Upper Darby. I want to be able to be in a position to be able to do that, but at a massive level. When I do that, you know, like maybe you leave like $100 tip, like at a diner or something.
Yep.
There's nothing on this earth that moves me, knowing that you're in a position in life, not so much financially, but spiritually, that you woke up. You know, God woke you today, and they gave us functioning lives. And not everybody has that.
Yeah, man.
And not everybody woke up. So to be able to create a vehicle and to use that vehicle like business to be able to then give back to someone who would receive what you're giving as life-changing. I mean, not something that they would think of lightly. Like, these folks' lives literally changed for that day because you had the capability of this, of a human. You woke up. He woke you up. I there's no other sensation that moves me like that.
Dude, I love that. I love that. I can tell that it matters a lot to you.
Yeah, I got a little choked up there. That's and I think that's why I'm here. Like, everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different story, a different path. And, you know, when you think about life, it's so fragile. I mean, we take things, me included, so many things for granted. Like, you know, we expect to wake up tomorrow morning.
Yep.
You know, we expect to have a roof, heat, air conditioning. My cell phone works. I can text.
Yep.
I have a car. I can go buy food.
Yep.
But, you know, like, that's like being a one percenter to me. Like, when they think of like the wealthy people, he's a one percenter. Being able to have all of what we have and what I just described.
Yeah, so blessed. Yeah.
That's like being a one percenter. I mean, the money means shit.
Yep.
I mean, yes, we need it to survive, but it's a byproduct. You know, it's a byproduct of what, you know, we do. We get, yeah.
You know, it's funny because ultimately everything always comes down to giving back in some way, shape, or form. Like, even for me, same thing, man. I don't know what it means, but I want to have massive purpose while I'm on this earth. But what does that mean? Ultimately, at the core of it, it means being able to give something back in some way. I don't know exactly what that is, but, you know,
You might have.
everybody wants to do that once they achieve some level of what they believe is success in their life, because ultimately we can't take money with us.
True.
And once you get to a certain point, you realize that money really isn't the thing that you're searching for, which again,
Very true.
that sounds fucking stupid to anybody that has never gotten to a milestone
1000%,
financially, right? They're like, no, money is everything. Trust me, it's not. And I am not rich by any means, but I've achieved a level where I probably never thought that I'd get there in my life.
Very true.
You know, and you do realize that that's only a portion of everything.
That's beautifully said. Beautifully said. Right on the money. And I think it takes some getting a little older in life and kind of getting out of that hot-headed teenager years, and or maybe your early 20s to really figure out how shit works, how life works, and start, kind of processing those big thoughts that you just spoke of. And that in the 20s, maybe it is about the money, but as time goes on, it becomes less of that, like you just said. And your soul has a different meaning.
Yeah.
And there's different things speaking to you each day.
Man.
And yeah. Wow.
Yeah, man. But I don't think most people can get there until they achieve the financial milestones first,
I agree.
Go out, make the money, do the things, get punched in the mouth.
1,000%.
Climb that mountain, fall back down, climb the next mountain, and just, once you get there, it's, there's a whole nother level of awakening, I don't know if you will.
I think, that's a great word. And I don't know to think the viewers are thinking that, like making money is not important. Like we all know that. Mm-hmm. It's just, you and I are kind of speaking at a little bit of a different level now, right? We're a little bit farther along than somebody first starting out. Like, I didn't know what the hell any of this shit meant. I had no idea.
25 years ago.
I barely knew what a mortgage was, but I had no idea what a note meant. I literally had no clue. I never heard of the word note. What's a note and a mortgage? I thought you just have a mortgage. Well, you need a note also. So then it was all about, let's build something. Let's make some money and get this machine rolling. But as life goes on, you kind of take some different paths. So just wanted to make that point.
I love it, man. I love it. So coming back, try to land the plane here. You mentioned that
I like that
multifamily, like larger multifamily, is maybe on the horizon for you.
Yeah, definitely that.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with raising private capital.
Okay.
Nothing against hard money lenders, but just private individuals, who are sitting on some cash, who are maybe worried about the stock market, the fluctuating of that. It goes up, it goes down, who's in office. Similar to gentlemen that it could be women, gentlemen, it doesn't matter, that you use, private people. Mm-hmm. You make one phone call, hey, I need X amount. Okay, no problem. Just maybe send me the address to make sure there's actually a house there. That's like the only question you ask.
Yeah.
Right? And that's always an obsession. You can kind of never have enough capital, or at least access to capital.
Absolutely.
Right? And the multi-unit buildings. And that's, I try not to. See, one of my problems is, Drew, that, and the people that are close to me will attest to this, I tend to maybe get a little scattered, like one day you're trying to do buildings, the next day you're trying to raise capital. So, like the shiny object syndrome is not a good thing.
It's real, man. Right? It's real. Yeah.
So, so I'm trying to change my thought process is, okay, I want to do these three things, right? And flipping, I got back into flipping. So what's that, three things? So I read this book, and you might've read it. It's called Who Not How. Mm-hmm. Do you know it?
Yep.
It really was transformative to me.
Yep.
And I'm like, wow, this is a cool way to think. Like, who can I ask to help me with this? Not how the F am I going to figure this out? Like,
there's somebody that already knows how to do this. Somebody has already, climbed this mountain, right? Yeah.
It's very true.
It's delegation at its finest.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
And, earlier on, another thing that I could add to maybe some folks first starting out or are looking to scale. Years and years and years, Drew, I had the mindset of, I'm going to do this all myself. I'm going to own everything myself. I'm not going to have any partners. Like, the partnerships didn't equate in my brain. And, I guess depending on what you want and which direction you want to move in business, I guess that could be a good thing and a bad thing, right? So fast forward till today, or actually after reading that book, why don't I partner with somebody? We'll divvy up the profit. We'll divvy up the responsibilities, and we'll have a partnership. And that way, we have two brains conquering the vision instead of just me in the basement in front of a computer trying to freaking figure half the shit out.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be that difficult, dude.
Yep.
And it took me years and years and years to get my ego, because I think it was a little bit of an ego. Not that I want to maybe own everything, but it was just an ego. I think it was more of I don't want to give up half the money.
I get it.
But it's like, dude, you're not really giving up half the money. You're growing 10 times compared to
if you're giving up half the money, but it's the difference of doing $5 million a year in revenue versus $15 million a year in revenue.
Exactly.
1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2. 1 + 1 can equal 3.
Perfect. Perfectly said. And that's not, I don't think that's easy for a lot of people to comprehend. It wasn't for me at all. Mm-hmm. But like you just said, the scalability of it and the 1 + 1 = 3 instead of 2, if you can wrap your mindset around that, it's endless. It's limitless. It's limitless.
Yep.
So that's, I welcome it now. I don't have to take every dime off the table anymore. Like, when first starting out, I don't have to do that anymore. Because, we know that by forming a team of savages, we're going to get there faster.
Yep.
And B, easier, because, the business owner doesn't have to figure it all out. And you're probably going to make more money, like you just said.
Yep.
It's inevitable. It's just a byproduct. The economy is a scale.
Yep, for sure.
So
So how does that correlate? How does that translate to what you're doing today, or what you're doing tomorrow, or what you're looking to do?
I would like, with the multi-unit buildings, I want to buy like 25 units, 50 units, and I understand that I need equity partners in that, for liquidity purposes. So I'm at peace with that. So, I'm in the process, not in the process, but I'm always looking for people who also want to get into maybe real estate investing, I don't know, someone who's not investing already, like a doctor or a lawyer, they have a lot of cash. And I would take care of the management, because a lot of these folks, I think they're on the sidelines just like, I wouldn't mind being invested in a multi-unit building, but I don't want to deal with tenants and toilets.
Absolutely.
That's not a problem.
Yep.
That's where my team comes in. And I think, and I realize that, I realize that I'm not going to bring a lot of liquidity to the table, but I am going to be able to bring the team with the management. Mm-hmm. And
you're connecting the pieces, man.
The pieces, just a puzzle. Yeah. Like you do the same thing. When you did the software company, all right, you got like a puzzle and a puzzle, and you start connecting pieces, and it comes together. So it's just finding the right folks that believe in that vision. I want to have 5,000 units in 10 years.
Okay.
And there's no way I'm going to be able to do that by myself.
Yep.
I've mentioned it to like Joe. He goes, okay. He's like, that's thinking small. I don't know. Maybe it is. But, coming from 90 units to 5,000. Now, maybe not holding 5,000 at a time, but, you're buying, you're selling, you're refinancing. It's like a cyclical business.
Yeah, man.
But to hit 5,000 units would be a massive accomplishment.
Dude, absolutely.
You know, they say
I don't think anything about that could be described as small, my friend. That's that's big. That's big. Is it attainable though? Yeah. And I'm sure you know guys that have done it.
You know, half of me wants to say, damn, dude, that's fucking nuts. Like, really? Like, you know, you start talking to yourself, is that really attainable? But then, like you just said, there's guys that have done it. Like when we first started out the conversation, nothing that you've done hasn't been done before.
Yeah, man.
It's just, are you the person you need to be to facilitate this vision?
Yeah.
And to be able to explain it in a believable way to others. Mm-hmm. Like our job as a leader.
Yep.
Right? To come in with, you know, same like with your software company.
Yep. 100%.
You had the capability to explain that vision to where it made sense to other people. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe they didn't believe it, but they damn well believed you believed it.
Yep. And they didn't at first, right? So like to that point, was I the person that I needed to be when I started that journey to be able to start, but not only to develop a product that worked, but to be able to make it useful to others and sell them on that as well.
Exactly.
The answer is absolutely not. No, like, you know, I had to reinvent myself a million times through that process, and I'm still doing it every day. Yeah. Right. So every day.
So yeah, who you were then is not who you are now.
Yep.
You know, and that's a beautiful thing. That's like just a beautiful evolution of life. We're meant to grow and expand and live and try things and just, you know, not be kind of stuffed in a corner all our life. Like as humans, right? We're just, you know, we're meant to do that. Mm-hmm. That's incredible.
I forget if I read or I heard something, but in the last like day or two that there's something psychologically within our brains that like pressure actually forces us to grow and evolve. And I didn't, you know, dig any deeper than that, but I do love like psychology and everything and training sales teams and everything. Like psychology is super interesting to me.
Very.
But I really like that idea, that concept, whether there's any truth to it or not, but thinking and reflecting on that, it's like, dude, yeah, I've had a lot of pressure in my life, like a lot of fucking pressure. Yeah. But I've also grown a lot as a result of it, you know? And I had another mentor that he hated the word stress. He always used the word pressure instead of stress. And I like that.
Really?
I like that because stress, you automatically have like a negative aura around it. Pressure is like, okay, I can feel that. Pressure, but I can also solve pressure. You know what I mean?
That's a very interesting concept. I think that's kinda totally neat. Right. When you hear the word stress, a complete negative connotation.
Yeah.
Wow, but pressure.
It's pressure.
I like that.
Yeah.
You mind if I use that?
I do not mind at all. I can't claim it. That one was, I think that was Eric Brewer. Appreciate you, buddy.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Again, I've learned a lot of great things from a lot of great people over the years. And, you know, I'm happy to be having this conversation with you, man. It's like, you know, I think, again, the coolest thing about doing this podcast is not just that I get to sit down with awesome people like you and share your story and your journey and everything, but it's like, dude, we're doing it in a way that, you know, other people are going to be able to listen to and, you know, take golden nuggets from you and everything, man.
That's great. I mean, there's nothing more profound than that, you know, because when we started out, I don't even know if there was podcasts that existed. Like I would have loved to listen to maybe Tony Robbins, but I didn't know who the hell he was. But you know, these are two guys that are, you know, we're both on the street. We're both operators, and it's, you know, we're not reading from a textbook or like a teleprompter. Like this is real life shit.
Yeah, man.
Like real life stuff. You know, getting kicked in the nuts.
Yeah, man. We're flawed people. We're fumbling through a lot of it.
Exactly.
But doing it, man.
Right, and people, at least. I'm sure you would agree with this, if I can speak for you. we relate to people like that. Like we relate to people who are in the trenches.
Man.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
us. We're speaking to earlier versions of ourselves.
Exactly.
You know, it's like I find myself often like whenever I'm speaking and I say things like, "Oh, well, people." It's like most of the time when I say that, what I mean is I'm speaking to me 5 years ago, man. Like,
totally.
You know,
totally.
It's not like, because it's easy from the outside for somebody to look at it and be like, oh, well, you're speaking down to people.
Exactly.
It's like, no. It's not that at all. The only reason I'm speaking at all is because I'm hoping that I might be able to make an impact to somebody. And the only reason that I think that I might be able to do that is because I was there.
Exactly.
I did it.
You couldn't have said that any better. You couldn't have said that any better. Totally.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. And, you know, you hope you come across that way. You know what? It's out of your control if you don't come across that way. You know, if somebody thinks that you're bragging or this guy is doing wholesale deals. Now he's doing flips, and he is a software company. You hope they don't come across of saying, thinking, oh, this dude's made it. He's like on the gravy train. Like, you're giving back nuggets of how you got kicked in the face, like over and over, to say that you too can do it. Like,
you too can get kicked in the face, just like we did.
Right.
It's funny, but no, seriously, like I think, again, back to the point of just kind of giving back. And I don't know why it means so much and is so valuable to me. And obviously it is to you and it is to other people and everything. But it does. It matters to me. And, I'm glad to be able to share my experiences.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I'm glad
you were able to share yours.
Yeah, man. This is great. This is good stuff.
So
I'm glad we connected.
If anybody wants to reach out to you, they want to lend money. They want to bring you a deal. They want to come in on multifamily stuff. Where are people finding you?
Before I answer that, I'm here. I'm going to give my cell phone number.
I love it.
I'm here to help. Like, I'm here. Look, I don't know everything. I couldn't tell you how to go from 90 properties or I couldn't tell you to go from 10 million to 10 billion. I'll be straight up. That's not my circle of competence. And I understand that.
Yep.
But I think I can, shed some light on somebody who has their first place and, hey, how do I buy 5 or 6 more? Like, I can speak truth to that.
Dude, I love that.
And so I also, if anybody ever wants to text me, reach out to me or call me about that, or just talk about life, or, hey, I'm thinking about hiring my first employee. Can you tell me the do's and don'ts or the pros and cons of that? And, I love that stuff. I could talk about that all day long, because again, like you said, you're giving back knowledge. You're giving back something that somebody needs to know. It's our duty. It's our duty. I think it's our duty, not just you and me, but everyone to, if you know something, right, and you have massive experience with something, it's your duty to help someone else who was in your position 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, man.
To change their life. Like, you're literally changing this person's trajectory of life and their family tree by one nugget. You could say one nugget and it wouldn't even mean anything to you and me, because that's how we talk normal anyways.
Yep.
Right? But for someone 10 years ago, it could be, it would change the trajectory of their life. And I had someone like that. His name was Steve, like I was saying, the guy who used to paint it for. I used to call him every 5 minutes. And looking back, reflecting back, right, I know the importance of that individual. And
yeah, man,
it's massive. And it's massive to have someone like that in your life. And everyone who's first starting out or who wants to scale, you don't, like we were saying, you don't have to do this by yourself, man. You don't have to be the caveman. If you got a question, those freaking phones can reach anywhere in the world. Like, just ask for help.
Yep.
Nobody's going to think you're asking a dumb question. They're not going to think you're dumb. They actually want to help you. Like I'm saying, it's exciting for us to help people because we were there and we had help.
Yep.
And it changed our trajectory in life. It changed
Absolutely, man.
to a place where, it was unfathomable to you to have a software company X amount of years ago. You would think the person was nuts, but you had something. Maybe somebody gave you a nugget, somebody gave you a thought, and you ran with it.
Yep.
And now it completely changed your trajectory.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely,
it's our duty. I do want to do that. But anyways, that was a long-winded answer to your question. How do people reach
That
me?
was great, though. That was great. You're right. It was the longest answer to that question. But no, I think that was valuable, man. That was valuable.
I mean, text, call, my cell phone number 610-331-9173. I'm always on the phone. If I don't answer, just text me. My email is jake@visionquest3.com. Vision Quest is all one word with the number 3. And,
Love it. We'll link it below.
I'm not the kind of person who just kind of points fingers all day. Like, we're going to answer the phone. Like, I'm not at this poofy guy who doesn't answer the phone, or, I used to answer the phone, I'm not going to answer the phone anymore. I'm at a higher level in life. Like, fuck all that. Like, I want to answer the phone more and help more people.
Yep.
Right? So that's.
I'm saying yup, but that's not me. I'm probably not answering the phone. I'll answer text messages all day, but I'm probably not answering the phone.
If you don't recognize
I have a lot
the
of
number.
people that get mad at me for that, but I don't answer the phone for my friends. Like, shoot me a text. I'm usually talking to 27 people at the same time.
On text. Yeah. and that's cool. I mean, I think people, understand, you got to be respectful of one's time too, right?
Of course. Of course.
So yeah, it's good. It's we need more of this.
Dude.
We everybody needs to. It's hard out there, man. And everybody, we need to look out for one another. It's tough. It's 10 billion times tougher when you and I started in every regard in life, but not impossible to still start.
Yeah.
Right. I do want to reiterate that, and hopefully we did a good job reiterating that to the.
That just reminded me of something. And after just kind of, landing the plane, I'm still going to bring it up anyway, because I'd love to hear your theory on this based on what you just said. But it is weird to think about, right? That, tell me how you relate to this. I would say that I, as an individual, or I, as a business owner, am exponentially better, smarter, more connected today than I was 8 years ago. But still, seemingly things are harder now than they were 8 years ago. Why is that?
Yeah.
Do you relate to that?
I never heard that before, but processing that, I agree 100%. I agree. It's like 100%.
Everything's just always getting harder.
I don't. Why is that? You're right. Why is that? I don't know. Is it just because we're being tested in a more profound way to get to the next level?
Maybe.
God's kind of like, or maybe I should say the universe, whichever you believe in. All right, well, let's say, the universe looking down at an individual saying, yeah, okay, well, I got you this far and you're doing a good job, and all right, you think you can handle more? All right, here's some more. Figure this out.
Yeah.
And, you get it, and a whole nother level of shit just comes down on you.
Yeah, man.
Is it that?
I don't know.
Is it?
It's one of them tough things. I don't think there's a real answer
I don't think there
but
is
it's
either.
cool to
I agree with you.
hypothesize,
Yeah.
I just think the level of skill necessary to be competitive, and it's probably not just applicable in real estate, it's probably applicable in most industries. It's like, everybody is always progressing. Everybody is always getting better. So if your competition's getting better, you have to get better.
Yeah.
And nobody is ever slowing down or stopping because we have to get better or we get crushed and you go out of business.
Exactly.
So it just means that every single day things are getting harder, and it does kind of raise the barrier to entry to a degree. So really, like the best way again is just being connected with other people that are walking that same path.
That really, what you just said nails being connected. nails it down even harder, as being even more important to be connected, have a group, like have a table of high level thinkers.
Yeah, man.
That's another one of my dreams. I want to have like a table of high level thinkers. Like we can Zoom once a month, or like once a quarter, we'll meet up in person. Hey, what are you doing? What's working? Who you calling for this? Hey, I got a tax problem. I got an accounting problem. Hey, just
Dude, I love it.
Just complete vulnerability.
Yep.
Don't come into this group unless you're going to speak your truth.
Yep.
Like, I don't care if you cry, you get upset, you're getting divorced. It doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter where you are. We're not here to say, oh, that guy's fucked up. You know what I mean? We're going to solve stuff. Let's have a solution-based meeting.
Yep.
And that's on my to-do list for this year.
I love that. Sign me up. Sign me
You
up.
in, brother?
I'm in.
Let's do it.
I'm in, man. Let's make it happen. It goes back to, the Dale Carnegie definition of what a mastermind is. And, I've been in mastermind groups over the years and everything, but just fundamentally like what that means of just having a high performing group of thinkers around you to just be a collective mind to solve complex issues, man.
Totally.
It's fucking awesome.
And business could stem from that.
Absolutely.
Let's partner up on this. Hey, I got this opportunity. Oh, I got some money, but I don't have management. Or I need another salesman. My salesman just left. I'm looking for, hey, I got a guy that I don't need. Maybe he'd be good for you. I mean, it's limitless. It's literally limitless.
Absolutely, dude.
So yeah, all right, let's do it.
I love it. Sign me
up.
Let's
do it. All right, let's do it.
Jake,
We're going to do it.
It's been fantastic, man. Great conversation. I appreciate you.
You too, brother. It's been very, I hope I didn't go too long-winded on
man.
things, but I was
fantastic. Like I said, I don't set time limits for these things, man. I like to just let it flow and see where the conversation takes us. And I think that this took us in a lot of places through this conversation that were definitely fulfilling for me. And I think other people will be able to get a lot of value out of it as well. It was
definitely fulfilling for me because I don't know if anybody else knows this, but we don't really know each other. I mean, we talked a couple times on the phone, and I'm using your software. But other than that, maybe we texted about, hey, you got a contractor, hey, you're using for that. But this is the first time we've ever met face to face.
Yep.
I've never, we haven't felt each other's energies, and we had a couple Zooms. So I think this is amazing.
And here we are. It went friggin' awesome. Drop in the comments. Do you think that me and Jake knew each other before this?
it's funny how things work. It really is. And all from a message from Coach Joe.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the first thing he said. He goes, dude, you got to reach out to Drew. I'm like, oh yeah, I know him. I follow him on Facebook. I'm like, and that was that. I probably sat on that recommendation for 3 months before I actually reached out to you.
But you did it. You did it. And here we are, man.
Here we are.
It's like, but again, that goes back to not to drag on, but to the power in one little connection
1,000%
from somebody that was also a coach, It's
1,000%. It's amazing.
Yep.
Amazing. Really, I'm going to shoot him a little video and send it to him on the way home. Just my appreciation for this connection.
Absolutely.
And we're just getting started.
Yeah, man.
We're just getting started. This is just a start.
That's it, brother. Again, I appreciate you coming on.
Too,
this has
brother.
been fantastic, man.
This was
boom.